Hello, gentle folks of the light slack, slackolites, gentle friends, etc. I figured that I have been talking about resin and pressure pots and homemade dice for long enough at this point that I could shed a little bit of light into the process, and especially into the most sort of recent experimentation that I have gone through with these sets. And before we even get into this, I wanted to say these are actually done as identical as possible. I used the exact same amount of resin and hardener, which is 25 mils each, because this one's by volume. The exact same molds, the exact same silicone molds, the exact same amount of alcohol ink inside of each of them. So 1 drop of this like pinata pink and 2 of this liquid gold. Literally the only difference is that this set was made just in a regular sort of anaerobic chamber, so I put them in this like metal lock box essentially, and just let them sit out at regular room pressure basically. And these were done in a pressure pot at 40 psi. And speaking of, here's the pressure pot itself. This is my new favorite sticker. I picked it up when I was visiting Ginny and Chico and Toss in Seattle this past week. And of course, these little sheeps are from Toss too. They're so darn cute. But in any case, these are identical except for the pressure pot, basically. And at a glance, they probably don't look that different. You probably look at them and see, yeah, they're 2 fairly sets of translucent-ish pink dice. So I wanted to kind of use the D12s as examples, as like a comparison and contrast, because I think that they're probably 2 of the clearer ones. So this was from the first set, and this is where I cut the sprue off, and I can show you guys more about that later. Let me see. So on some of these surfaces, if I pull this a little bit closer, you can see, if you look kind of up towards the top of the 8, there are these kind of microscopic, well, not microscopic because we can see them, but very small sort of surface bubbles. Let's see if we can see them. Yeah, you can see a lot of them on that too, actually. And of course, again, don't mind where I cut that in a little intensely, but lots of little surface imperfections. And that is because when I was mixing my silicone molds, I was mixing them a little too vigorously and incorporating too much air into them. And so when they cured, the air bubbles that were touching the dice that I was using to cast this, they were just kind of resting on the surface. And so now every mold or every dice that I make with those molds are going to have the exact same imperfections in the exact same spots. So basically, this test proved that it wasn't just my resin or the casting, it was the molds themselves. So I will have to, unfortunately, kind of Marie Kondo these molds. I won't be able to use them in the future, even though I have the nice new machinery to make nice dice. So, thank you for your time. You were a great way to learn how to do this, but your time has kind of come up. Your time is done. So yeah, you can see it's kind of cloudy. You can't really see through to the other side, and I know that there are petals in there as well, but a little kind of murky. The surface details make it a little dull as well because you don't have that nice flat glossy surface. You almost have, I don't want to say the fully opposite problem, but the pressure pot dice really brought to attention how many holes or air holes there were in those molds. Because I know that I made a comment earlier that it looked like pimples, but this dice really does look like it has pimples on it, and those are those aforementioned air pockets. But because the resin was under so much pressure in this contained area, it really shoved it into all of these little imperfections in the mold. And unfortunately, Ginny had a good point earlier. She said, would you be able to kind of sand these to salvage them? The answer is yes for the dice, because you can literally use sandpaper to, scrub that off. And that's what I did with a set that I'll show you later. But the molds themselves are not salvageable. So, but yes, you can already see that the resin itself, if you look in the bottom corner, is actually much clearer than the sort of more opaque one that we were looking at earlier. And really that is what I was most concerned about with this test, was just that the resin itself was coming out super clear, because there are a lot of You can't really see it as well on this camera, but there are a lot of little like microscopic air bubbles in the middle of the resin. And it's again because I did not have the pressure pot to actually force those gas bubbles inside to shrink to basically invisible, which is what happened with the set. So those are the sort of main differences. I actually have resin from the top of the sprue, which is basically this area up here that's sort of a reservoir for any extra resin. So this didn't have any petals in it, and you can just see like how clear that is, like crystal clear, glassy smooth. The sides, and again, these aren't polished at all, and those still have the same air bubbles as those do, but it is super, super clear. So this pressure pot is well worth it if you ever plan on making your own dice. I really don't think that I would even blow the money on resin and silicone and dyes and mica powders and all that stuff because it's not a cheap investment to even start. So if you are going to do it, I would highly recommend getting a pressure pot. Which brings us to these last little D6s. So again, this is from the old set, unpolished, unsanded, anything like that. Have the same sort of issues, all of those little pock marks on the surface that we saw manifested as pimples in the new set. But you know, fairly dull. The numbers don't have a lot of like definition to them. And again, because I guess the resin didn't necessarily get pushed into that like impression as much in the silicone. And this one is actually sanded, polished, and painted, and I don't know if you can see the difference quite as much on the camera as you can in person, but it is very glassy. Like, don't mind that it's a little scratched on the surface still, because this was my first real go-round with any sanding, but yes, you can see the, like on the left there, you can see the 2 through there, and the, is that the 5 on the, or the 6 on the bottom there? It's super transparent, really like clear colors. And if you hold it up to the light too, you can see it's a really subtle effect, all of that like gold glitter. My fiance, Mr. Mia, tells me it's a very Victoria's Secret looking set of dice, and I'm inclined to agree with him. But yes, you can see that there are air bubbles in the actual numbers themselves. So even though I was able to sand off most of those pimples to a pretty convincingly smooth finish, the molds are kaput because I would never be able to get those bubbles out of the numbers without totally just demolishing the dice. And again, that's regrettably the corner that I went a little too hard on too fast, and so I don't have like a nice rounded corner, but I will learn to be more patient. But yeah, this is just, it's so shiny and so transparent. This pressure pot is awesome. I will definitely be making new molds on Friday. Maybe. Oh gosh, I'm going to Ojai this weekend. Well, in any case, my new dice, my sharp edge dice, are arriving on Friday. And when I get back, either on Friday night or I guess on Sunday night, I will be making like 2 or 3 new silicone molds just to test it out by making the molds in the pressure pot. So we'll see if that actually helps reduce the bubbles on the surface, but otherwise, yeah, I am feeling much more confident about the things that are actually coming out of this, and I'm looking forward to making myself 3 sets of dice for each of my characters, because if you're not making yourself, if you don't have that many dice for each of your characters, are you even playing D&D? So I'm looking forward to doing that for myself as well as for friends, and obviously that includes you guys as well. Maybe I'll make an ArtHo Instagram to like post my artsy dice pics on at some point. Maybe I'll throw spare sets up on Etsy, yada yada. But I mostly am just thrilled to have this as like a new hobby. This is like scrying dragons, but making it in real life. Like, this is all of my favorite things sort of intersecting in one area. So yeah, thanks for letting me talk for, oh my god, 10 minutes at this point almost, about resin and dice. And thank you for always letting me talk about this in the channel without telling me to like go talk about it somewhere else or not talk about it as much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing more with you guys in the future. And if you have any suggestions on color combos or things that you would like to see, let me know, because I have a lot of experimenting that I want to do. So thanks, guys.